And we're back with Speak with the Mayor, text the mayor, email the mayor, communicate with me so that we can discuss what's going on in America and in the world that's being hidden from you. And there's probably more of that than there are things that are being shared with you. First, let's remind ourselves that we're several days before Christmas, and we should just recollect that although it's a wonderful, joyous, and fun occasion, it's also a very solemn occasion for those people who are religious. And it's also now probably about the 4th or 5th day of Hanukkah, I would think, maybe even later, which is a very, very ancient and beautiful feast of lights, not only celebrating the victory of the Maccabees over their oppressors, but also God's grace in lighting the candle for 8 days, even though there was only oil for 1. And you put those two beautiful feasts together, the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ and the intervention of God to save his chosen people so that they could carry forth the word of God. This is a period of time where we've got to remember that all of this joy, all of this fun, all of this happiness comes about because of something extraordinarily important in human history, the intervention of God. So it's a time of prayer as well as a time of gift giving, fun, family together. And remembering the central message of the Judeo-Christian religion, which is taking care of your fellow man. So today, oh my goodness, there's so much that happened. It's very, very hard to start with one particular thing, but I think the omnibus bill, it would be the disgrace of the day. It seems like we have a disgrace every day now that Biden is president, and this is truly a disgrace. It's a bill that, well, first of all, nobody read it. And this is what you pay them for. I'm talking about the senators who passed this. It's a 1,400-page bill. Really not impossible to read a 1,400-page bill if you know how to. I used to read the New York City budget. I wasn't going to sign it unless I read it. But this $1.7 trillion that was just agreed on, where no one knows what's in it except the people who were bribed for their votes, meaning they were given earmarks. There were over 700 earmarks. Remember when we did away with earmarks? Like hell we did. Earmarks are bribes. Basically, an earmark is you want the vote of Senator X, and you give him a big program so he can put his political donors and political friends and sometimes his family and into the program. It's not always the case, but very often it is, or the bridge to nowhere, or which would go probably to a company that was a donor to that particular senator. That's why this thing ends up being so expensive. Yeah. But the real disgrace of this is nobody read it. Nobody reads this. I don't even think McConnell reads it. But certainly not most of the senators. Now, for Democrats to vote for it, I just expected. They're a bunch of communists, and they waste money left and right. And that's all Biden's been doing since he came into office. Why do you think it costs you so much more to live right now? Why do you think a lot of Americans couldn't enjoy Thanksgiving the way they used to, or Christmas? Because Joe Biden wastes money, enormous amounts of money. And a lot of that money goes for marginal to corrupt purposes. Well, I mean, this is just right in your face. In your face.
But Mayor, we're always told the Democrat Party is the party of the working man.
It is. It's the working man. No,
right. That's what our dad, maybe your dad, when they were raised, that was the Democrat Party of old.
It was the party of the working man for a much shorter period of time than it was the party of slavery. It spent much more time as the party of slavery and racism than it did the party of the working man. If it ever was the party of the working man, now they tax the living daylights out of the working man. And what they really seek are people who don't work. So you have an analysis report that came out just the other day that shows how much more money you can make by not working.
The party of the non-working man.
You can get up to a couple 100,000 not working under Biden. This has things in it like this emergency bill. So it's got $44.9 billion in emergency assistance to Ukraine. Nothing in there about accountability. So we're turning over $44.9 billion, just a small portion of what we actually have given them. We know they've used a lot of it on arms, but we don't know if that country, which is habitually corrupt, hasn't grabbed some of that money. It would be very unusual if it had. $40.6 billion in disaster funding for weather events like hurricanes, wildfires, and floods. $39 billion to the Justice Department so they can persecute January 6 people. $735 million for the Capitol Police, who weren't able to police the Capitol on January 6th and actually shot and killed Ashley Babbitt. $15.3 billion for community project funding. The community projects selected are the son of the congressman, the mother of the congressman, the brother of the congressman, his best friend, the people who work on his campaign. This is like to help, like a political donation. That's how you get their votes. And how about this? We got a couple of buttes here. $3 million for a universal hip hop museum in the Bronx. Boy, I bet you're all going to come to the hip hop museum in the Bronx, right? How many visitors do you think the hip hop museum in the Bronx is going to get? And who the hell do you think is going to be?
Who's getting paid?
Yeah, who's getting paid? Like a non-political independent person? I don't even have to know. That one being the mayor of New York and the former U.S. attorney, I can tell you the chance of turning that one around into a case is pretty damn good. Not 100%, but pretty damn good. Oh, wait a second, Ted. You're going to want to be the first one. You want to be the first one on your block to hike on this trail.
What trail is that?
That is going to be in Georgia, the First Lady Michelle Obama Trail. I know everybody is going to be coming from all over to march on the Michelle Obama Trail.
How much money is going for this trail?
Well, people who building it are getting $3.6 million.
That's a trail.
I'm sure they're completely non-political people who will make the profit from that. Then there's $12 billion for the Head Start program, many of which are completely useless programs. Again, done by political people who make profits off it. $5 billion in low-income home energy assistance program. That's part of the package of about 50 of these things. They can get you up to 120, 130, 140,000.
So who is profiting?
So you don't have to work. Well, because what people don't realize, the corruption happens in the groups that get put together to be the contractors. So
give us kind of explain how this works, Mayor. I'll give you a specific name.
There's a New York State has funded a particular housing program for the homeless.
Okay,
they've gotten over $600 million in funding in a 4-year period. Most of it federal funding. The people who have done it are major contributors to Adams and many of the Democrats in New York. But beyond that, the guy running it makes a salary of running the not-for-profit makes about $1 million a year. His brother also makes $1 million a year. Then his wife and children own the catering company that he contracts with to buy the food for the homeless people. The reason it became a scandal is they found maggots in the food. He also developed a security company to secure the facility, and they get about $600,000 or $700,000 a year for their contract. And that's his brother who does that. This is the way these are all structured. The first time I broke one of those open was the Lyndon Johnson Great Society Model Cities Administration under Mayor John Lindsay, a Republican turned Democrat. sort of a Romney of his day. And his money was supposedly for the poor, and it was basically going all to the director's relatives. He was setting up programs for the poor, putting his best friend in charge, his brother in charge, his wife in charge, his girlfriend in charge, the other mistress in charge, this one, that one, or another one. And they would also dutifully kick back to him in addition to the $250,000 or $300,000 he was getting back in the 1970s. Needless to say, I convicted him and sent him to prison. They've been doing it like this forever. So when I hear these things, I hear something different than you did. When I hear these programs, you think of it as this money is going to help the poor, like hell it is. If this money were going to help the poor, with the amount of money we have spent in 50 years, there'd be no more poor. This money is going to help the crooks. That's who it's going to help. They're not for profits. Don't be fooled by that. They're more profitable and less accountable. It's like the money that de Blasio's wife got, what was almost $1 billion. You know what the answer in trying to audit it was? They didn't keep good books. And the U.S. attorney just passed on it. Because many of them are afraid to touch Democrat politicians or minority politicians for that matter. That's just some of the, oh, how about this one? Here's another good one. $410 million to reimburse for restoring the Pacific salmon populations. How about that? No, I'm sorry. Did I say 410 million? That was only 65 million to restore the Pacific salmon populations. $410 million for border security. But you're going to say, Rudy, we need that. Except it's border security for Egypt, Tunisia, Oman, and Jordan. Nothing for us. $410 million from Biden.
How much should we just...
$410 million, it says here, for border security for Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman. Doesn't say Texas.
Wow.
Do you realize how you get ripped off? And I'm telling you, it isn't just the
18 Republicans, 18 Republican senators voted for this.
The difference is they're unanimously crooked and we're partially crooked. I mean, they all voted for it. They pulled Manchin and Sinema aside. Schumer had a little conversation with them. Boy, would I love to have taped that one. What did he offer them?
What do you think?
Who knows? But it wasn't something good. It wasn't something that's going to help anybody but their narrow little interest. And it's going to hurt you because it's going to make inflation go up. When you multiply this by 1,000 times, that's why the country is in the condition that it's in. There are a few senators that have been really, really thoroughly honest about stuff like this. John McCain was one of them. Rand Paul is another one. But many of these guys sell out for
what?
Programs for their political. The best example of the lack of ethics here is programs for their political supporters. The worst is programs for their relatives and fellow crooks who kick back to them. The second happens as well as the first. The second has been the subject of many, many federal prosecutions dating back to the 1970s. Well, it's a pattern that is exactly the same today as it was when I convicted 18 people in the Model Cities Administration when I was 27 years old.
You were 27 convicting these people?
Yeah.
At 12?
I've never liked crooks.
When was your first prosecution? How old were you? Your first
my lack of respect and my disdain for Joe Biden is not individual to him. It is for all public officials who sell their oath of office, except Biden did it on a scale that I've never seen before. And you made him president.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Because you were fooled and defrauded.
I remember this
as it's coming out now. Wait until the rest of it comes out. I've got the hard drive, which is really the computer. And starting next year, we're going to share little parts of it with you so that you realize, I guess the only way to say it is what a warped man you have in the White House and family. tragedy. I mean, you can see it in the people that die as a result of his ineptitude and his bad decisions. Did anybody have to? Did Ukraine have to happen at all?
Can I come by and tell about the podcast?
Well, the podcast, Dr. Maria, do you want to tell about the podcast?
Sure.
Dr. Maria is going to take up a seat here, and she's going to tell us about the podcast that she brilliantly edited and produced.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Maria. I do a show with Rudy on Sundays on WABCradio.com, 10 a.m. every Sunday, called Uncovering the Truth. But Mayor Giuliani has 2 podcasts out right now. The first one it's a mixture of a few different things. It's a little bit of a Christmas blessing. And then he talks about the January 6th committee and some information you might not know. And the other podcast that's out is about the consequences of the open border. And that stars me. And so I've been on a lot of shows talking about the fentanyl poisoning overdoses that are tragic. It's over 100,000 in a year. And the border situation is untenable. It's just terrible what's happening in the violent sexual assaults to the females. But please make sure you go to rudygiulianics.com and you can see all of his different podcasts. There's a treasure trove of a lot of great information. Tonight, we work for WABC Radio. We went to the Christmas party. That's why I'm a little sparkly. And we saw a colleague of ours, Larry Kudlow. And I always enjoy talking to Larry because he's a financial wizard. And what Rudy was just talking about that omnibus bill, where all of our legislators failed us, or most of them failed us. There was only, what did you say, 12 people who didn't vote for it, or...
18 Republican senators, Doctor, voted for it.
The others voted against it.
Yes.
And not only will this cause more inflation, there's a lot of wasteful dollars in there, but Larry said something, because who read it, right? It's 4,155 pages. Larry said there was a huge tax hike in it. So we're going to be finding out for days to come what's in store for us. And really, if we needed to fund the military, why didn't the Republicans say, okay, don't bury it in a bill with all this pork. Let's do our own bill for just funding the military. You know, like I'm so sick of the games. We can't trust anybody in Washington anymore. And we got to vote these people out. We really have to take an active role. But Rudy, you were talking about it was Mike Lee's amendment that was going to pass. And Larry told us that Chuck Schumer all of a sudden said, wait, voting was supposed to end on this amendment. And he said, wait, I'm going to extend the time. He physically took Sinema and Manchin out of the hall and talked to them. I don't know what deal was struck because they already voted. And they voted with Mike Lee for his amendment. They came back in and changed their votes. So to me, it just goes to show you can be bought, you can be threatened, and it's a sad day. I love being an American. You love being an American. This is America's mayor. And when we can't trust our own government, there's always a little bit of corruption, but it seems like everybody is corrupt and we're all fed up. But we need people to get involved for voter integrity. We've seen a lot of shenanigans, especially during the pandemic. Election committees that had no right to change rules changed rules, and a whole plethora of other bad things happened during the 2020 election. And also, I guess, in this midterm, especially in Maricopa County, Arizona.
Well, every Democrat voted for this ridiculous bill, which is a giveaway bill, because they take it down to the last minute. They don't show it to anyone.
Right.
And then they get a solid 100% Democrat vote. And if they got to bribe the last couple to get the vote, like Schumer did, they do. I don't know what he offered them, but he offered them. I'd
like to know.
He offered them something that overcame their original judgment. But the real disgrace here is Mitch McConnell supported it.
Mitch McConnell, we got to get rid of him.
Now we're gonna have Mitch.
Come on, Kentucky, get him out of there.
We're gonna have Mitch, who usually sounds like he's. Well, I can't even say that. I'm not allowed to say what he sounds like.
I'm gonna play a little.
I'm gonna play a little soundbite. We'll see if we get up nice and loud. I'm gonna play a little soundbite from that very, very scintillating character, Mitch McConnell. See, I sometimes don't follow what he does, so I miss out on it because he puts me to sleep. Now let's see. We're going to see if we can get good old Mitch.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
They're in the defense part of our expenditures, making sure the Defense Department can deal with the major threats coming from Russia and China, providing assistance for the Ukrainians to defeat the Russians. That's the number one priority for the United States right now.
That's the number one priority for the United States? You agree with that?
Getting
that was amazing.
Ukraine? No, that's not.
What do you think? You think you
the
think
invasion at the border and the corruption in Washington?
But how bizarre! How bizarre for a senator,
the Republican leader in the Senate
to
says
say that.
Yeah.
That,
why?
Funding Ukraine is the number one priority for the United States. When we have an invasion going on in the United States, that's bigger than Ukraine, and in which more Americans have died through fentanyl, McConnell. It's one of the priorities. It's the main priority of the United States.
I'm not quite sure, but it's
time to retire, Mitch.
Who do you have?
Thanks for joining us. We have America's Mayor, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and special guest this evening, Dr. Maria. Dr. Maria, of course, a former hospital CEO, ran a major rural hospital system in the state, in the Granite State.
Number one CEO, rural hospital CEO in the country for 7 straight years.
7 consecutive years.
Or was it 8?
I don't know.
Oh, so don't be so. So
this is someone who has had a very unique perspective on things the last few years, of course, with what's going on in the world. So
actually knows how to run a budget. And I might add, I was the first mayor, I think, in memory to produce a surplus when I was mayor of New York City. I set up the first rainy day fund. I reduced taxes more than any mayor in history. People know me for reducing crime. They don't realize I reduced taxes more than any. To that, I was the only mayor in the history of the city to reduce taxes because they were all Democrats and the few Republicans were flaming liberals.
You know, wherever you go, Rudy, what do people yell? Come back as mayor, come back.
And it's almost everyone.
Give it to Blasio and Adams. It's not
doesn't
even
matter. Democrat, Independent, Republican.
Yeah, it is people.
Everybody.
Guys,
this guy Adams gives a speech today, but what a great job he's doing, because murder and shootings have gone down. He forgets to tell you that crime has gone up over 31%, overall crime.
Yeah, a lot of
murder and shootings on the subway is almost at a record level. We have now 30% more crime than we had under de Blasio. So, okay, a few less people are getting murdered, thank you, but a lot more people are getting banged over the head, raped, having their homes invaded, having their cars stolen, having their kids beaten up in school.
Yep. And
boy, oh boy, are they dying of fentanyl. Thank you, Joe Biden. But McConnell doesn't think that's our number one priority. He doesn't think the record murders in Philadelphia last year, that'll have record murders again this year in another 20 Democrat cities, is more important. Ukraine's more important than that.
Is he getting a kickback, do you think?
It's so bizarre.
No,
Billions
money.
and billions of dollars
Yeah.
just given without questions asked. The guy comes here in a sweatshirt.
That's no
Needs
respect.
20 billion. I need it today. Like by
It's
close of
not
business.
enough what you
Yeah.
got,
Oh.
American taxpayers.
We need double that. We need it by close of business, or like the world's gonna end.
I just remembered something. I gotta tell your audience.
He's doing that because that's what Biden did to them.
I gotta remember that.
That's a good point.
Biden said,
I'm not leaving here.
you don't get rid of that prosecutor that's going after my son and Zlochevsky.
You're not getting the
You're
money.
not getting your billions. You better get rid of that guy because he just served a warrant on my son's business.
And by golly, that prosecutor was gone.
So another thing, Larry
Son of a...
Kudlow told me that I forgot was in this bill is a huge expansion of welfare with no work requirements. So more and more people are going to be on the dole. Very few of us supporting the entire country. So they're going to end up raising taxes on us.
Dr. Maria, are you telling me the Democrats are buying votes?
Buying votes, they're crushing America. Do they hate America? I used to think when people ask
That's
me,
better than
do
making them up.
Democrats hate America? I thought, surely not. I have good friends who are Democrats. But the party, the Democrat Party, seems to be doing things that are going to crush our country financially, spiritually. We're no longer a sovereign nation when anybody can come through that border, and the cartel runs the border, not even the United States of America.
And who is telling us it's everyone? It's not even people from Mexico anymore coming over.
No, it's
They're from every other country in the world.
Oh,
Everywhere but Mexico.
Africa, Russia,
The Russians and Ukrainians.
Afghanistan.
Oh, what's this? Well, hold that up, Mayor. Let me get his.
no, that's not a...
What is showing?
That's not an example of a lawsuit for a bad plastic surgery job.
All right, let me see. I don't know what you're doing.
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that is going to be funded
Is her
with
face
this bill
up?
nobody read is the Nancy Pelosi Federal Building in San Francisco,
Unbelievable.
where you can go and have you can have plastic
Facebook?
surgery for free. You can be like Nancy.
What is that one? What about Fauci?
Oh, Fauci is they're gonna
1.5
$5 million.
for
They get a COVID history project about what a great.
Because you know what? They
He's
want
getting money?
They
Wait.
want to rewrite history of
Who's
COVID.
getting $5 million?
No,
1.5 million for the
1.5.
COVID history project with a
They're gonna
little
try to rewrite it.
bobblehead of
Fauci's
the
getting
rat.
this money?
No.
Oh.
There's a bobblehead of Fauci next to it, so I thought it was.
Well, I mean, he should be remembered. We did, right? I think we
Do
probably
you know? Isn't
lost
it that,
more people than most countries.
Economy
Isn't that-
destroyed our economy.
Isn't that
Destroyed
union
livelihood.
lady, the teachers union lady, called for COVID amnesty, saying don't point fingers?
The Atlantic, yeah, one of those liberal magazines
Yeah.
came out with a piece saying
Yeah,
everyone should get a free pass.
they're going to rewrite history.
Yeah.
How
Why-
they
but-
trampled on our
well,
rights.
Well, then what about a January 6th? free press?
Destroyed hardworking small business owners. That's Main
Destroyed
Street,
them.
right?
They
What
killed
is
a lot
this
more.
they did to our kids?
They killed a lot more people than January 6th. January
Yeah.
6th killed nobody but Ashley Babbitt.
Well, I didn't mean to jump in on your show, Mayor. I want to tell everybody, please go to rudygiulianics.com and sign up for his Rumble channel, because even though we're live streaming on YouTube, they do censor. So make sure you sign up for his Rumble channel and watch all of his
Censor?
podcasts.
No.
But good seeing you, Mayor.
They never censor. Take care. Take care. See you on Sunday. I tell you. Well, I want you to hear something from Mike Lee. I want you to know that not all senators are like McConnell and Schumer and Manchin. Some of them actually care about the amount of money that we spend and really do understand what's going on. And there's an increasing number of them. So that's the good. That's the good news. This is Senator Mike Lee from Utah, an extraordinarily intelligent man, by the way.
This monstrous spending bill clocks in at 4,155 pages. It was released in the middle of the night, and we've had it for only a few hours. And now we're being told Congress needs to vote on and pass this thing on an expedited basis. Some are saying, within the next 48 to 72 hours. By doing that, they're acknowledging the fact that they're treating what is fundamentally a legislative proposal. I mean, let's be serious about this. This is a handful, like 4 or 5 people in Congress wrote this. And they put it together. They introduced it in the middle of the night. the early morning hours of today. And now they're wanting to collapse all hearings, all floor debates, all discussions in earnest about this and say you just have to pass it because this is what the process is. Well, the process is this way because time after time, you've got enough members who agree to support these things without even having voted for it.
So
This monstrous spending bill clocks in at
let's listen to the rest of this.
Some of our colleagues must have magical powers, powers that I can't grasp or even understand. Because one of the reasons why this works is that you've had, I think, all 50 Democrats agree in advance they'd support it. And you've had between 10 and 20 Republicans agreeing in advance that they would support it, even though essentially none of them have seen this. I've got friends on the Appropriations Committee, including some who were subcommittee ranking members who hadn't seen it. And yet they didn't know what was in it. So magically, those 50 Democrats and those 10 to 20 Republicans who pledged their support for it before it even existed, they somehow knew what was in it. Well, it wasn't just that they were clairvoyant, it's that they were sort of bought off piece by piece, person by person. You hand out enough special favors here or there to get this or that proposal, this or that funding priority in there. You throw out 7,500 earmarks to jump on board. That isn't right. It used to be that the legislative process involved reading and debating and discussing and amending.
Reading? You think these people read? I've testified before Congress for 30 or 40 years. I've listened to their inane, stupid questions, usually written out by a staffer, and they have a hard time reading it, like Biden.
Bingo,
Reading? They're reading? Yeah, the last thing they read was a comic book.
It's not just the member, right? It's the staff. I mean, I've worked on Capitol Hill. I count me as one of them. 20-something-year-olds on Capitol Hill. Age, again, isn't an indicator. The mayor was prosecuting people at 20. However, this stuff, these members during these committee hearings, a lot of times they're not reading it ahead of time, right? It's put together by a 20-something-year-old in some cramped office in the Cannon House building, and they rush this thing to the member before his hearing, and so oftentimes the first time he sees it is when he's reading it at the hearing.
Well,
members that are very much a part of the process, but let's not kid ourselves. And I say that as a former Capitol Hill staffer. I served my time about a year.
I just bring this to your attention because this has become exacerbated under not only our inept president, but a political party that has no sense of restraint in spending your money and putting you in debt because they want to rush us towards socialism, and they've gotten us there. This is only part of the program. The program includes making more and more people dependent, having an open border, so we destroy America as a nation, a country that lets anyone come in for any reason without any vetting and without any attempt to assimilate them into Americans is eventually not going to be a country. And that, of course, is an aim of Karl Marx, as well as Frederick Engels, as well as Stalin and Lenin and Mao and the Cultural Revolution in China and the geniuses at our Ivy League and other schools who are communists. That's why they have this visceral reaction to anything patriotic. Nationalism is inconsistent with communism. There was even a publication, I think it was from Stanford, you shouldn't use the word American anymore. It should not be used. We should not refer to ourselves as Americans, but as United States citizens, because it suggests that we're the greatest country in the Western Hemisphere. And that's not right. Am I missing something? But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this is a deliberate thing. This isn't a joke. This isn't a group of mistakes. This isn't a bunch of stupid people that smoke too much pot. This is a This is a deliberate attempt to destroy your nation. And they're succeeding at it. As many of you just watch it go by. And then you watch different aspects of it. You watch the attempt to proselytize with young children and try to get them to doubt their gender so that you expand the number of transgender children. Also, you destroy the moral base of this country. By the way, another key objective of Marxism. Directly, a country who has no real strict moral base is a much easier country to make a socialist country than one that has a strict group of morals based either on religion, in particular based on religion. You think God was driven out of the public square by accident? Or was it motivated by the influence of Marxism and communism, going back to the 1920s, infiltrating the Roosevelt administration, infiltrating universities, making people feel like they're more intelligent and smarter if they don't believe in God? So this is something that has now kind of reached its apex, huh? It's been building for a long time. It had a number of setbacks. Ronald Reagan was a definite setback to them, big time setback. Donald Trump, massive setback. In fact, I'd say the reason for their maniacal desire to destroy him and use every illegal means possible to do it, including the phony frame up of Russian collusion paid for by Hillary Clinton, which has to be talk about defrauding the United States. What about the January 6th committee? That isn't a fraud. And that's a committee made up of multiple serial proven liars who don't investigate the most important facts concerning January 6th. I mean, the most significant thing that actually happened is one human being died that day. Nobody else died but one human being, Ashley Babbitt. They had no concern about that at all.
Inside the Capitol.
Inside the Capitol, only one person died. 3 others died outside the Capitol.
Peaceful protesters.
All of them were protesters, however. Unlike the false lies that were told by the people who orchestrated this, the protesters killed no one. None of them were found with a gun. And they're being described on CNN. I see them being described as, attempting to overthrow the country. You have to know you're lying. This group was trying to overthrow the country without a gun. What were they going to fight the special forces hand to hand?
Is there any questions?
So, we have any questions?
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. You can go to rudygiulianics.com. That's rudygiulianics.com. And what does the CS stand for?
Common sense.
So this is the fastest hour on the internet. We have some great questions tonight, Mayor. So keep them coming. A couple people have asked here in the chat. You're spot on with what's going on, Mayor. What can we do to fight back?
Well, what you've got to do is to pay attention to politics. The midterm election is over. It had some good results in that we have a Republican House. The reason they're rushing this through is because a couple of weeks from now, this wouldn't pass with the Republican majority in the House of Representatives. Also, Republicans in the House have much steelier spines than the Republicans in the Senate. In the Senate, we have a few that you really question what they are, like Romney. I don't know what Romney is. He doesn't know what he is. He's been everything. I've known Romney for a long time. He's had every position imaginable on every issue. But in any event, he surely isn't a Republican. McConnell kind of proved he isn't a Republican. Biggest priority for this country is funding Ukraine. I understand China because he makes a lot of money off China. But Ukraine, I don't get it, Mitch. mean, I know you and your wife make a fortune from Red China. They do. I'm not making that up. The New York Times or the Wall Street Journal went crazy because President Trump brought this up and said he was being racist for doing it. How stupid. He's not racist. You don't have questions about an American public official making a fortune from Red China? If you don't have questions about it, then you shouldn't be in a position to be guarding the national security of the United States.
Well, that's what they do, Mayor. It's the same thing with the border. If you want a secure border, you're a racist and you're xenophobic.
Right.
That's a relatively new term that I heard. Xenophobic, right?
You should be in favor of, thousands and thousands of kids dying of fentanyl and applaud it.
If you want
Just keep it open so China can make a fortune sending fentanyl in. The cartels can make a fortune guiding it in, and we can have 2 years in a row under Joe Biden, who at least in modern times is responsible for the death of more Americans than any president I can think of. That just adds a few more Americans that he's killing.
And you're a racist if you point out any connection between the COVID, the virus, and China. You can't say anything about that. You're a racist if you believe any sort of meritocracy, right? Any sort of grading system.
No, actually, something.
That's what they do on almost everything.
You're not a racist if you believe those things, because you don't consider color as something that should be the determining factor. What you consider is hard work, honesty, integrity, performance, particularly hard work. And when you don't, then you end up with a society like we have now, where we have more jobs than we have workers. And we got 10, 15% of America doesn't want to work. They don't want to work. That's a big percentage. Even in the days of, generational welfare, we didn't have that problem. Remember when Bill Clinton ended welfare? We will not have welfare as you know it anymore. We don't have welfare as you know it anymore. I feel your pain. I feel many things.
Arkansas.
Anything I can't put my hands on.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor.
I'm very glad to be on. Rudy Giuliani.
Former President Bill Clinton is joining us, apparently.
Rudy Giuliani was the best mayor in the United States.
Would you still believe that, Mr. Former President?
I wrote that in 1995, I think it was. I wrote it to him. I wrote down, I think he has it. It says, if every mayor was like you, being president would be an easy job. I could be feeling even more pain.
Okay. That's not a bad impression. Maybe we will have him call into the show.
He'd be happy to call in, but I think
you're old friends. What would happen if you gave him a call? What would be the first thing he'd say to you?
First thing he does is put Dr. Maria on the phone. That's the first thing he would say. I want to see that Dr. Maria again. I've seen her on the show, and no offense, Mayor, but I talk to you a lot. I'd like to talk to that Dr. Maria. Dr. Maria, I got pains all over.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor.
All of a sudden, you'd hear
Rudy Giuliani.
Boom! And you'd see this big, heavy woman. Boom, boom, boom. You know who that is?
Hillary.
I won't say.
Thanks for joining us, of course, America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani on the fastest hour on the internet.
Of a white Christmas.
Of course, counting down the days to Christmas. Lots of questions coming in. A lot of people want to know, and we had this for a few weeks now, Mayor. People suggesting a Trump Giuliani ticket for president.
The New York Times would love it. Now, I have to say, I thought they couldn't have given anyone a worse time when I was mayor than me.
The New York Times?
Oh my goodness! They did. I think we once counted. They did 98 editorials, and about 94 against me.
Okay.
Except one to endorse me for re-election. And whoever wrote it must have been. And what a good job I did in my first term as mayor.
So somebody, wow.
But now, when they write about me, when they write about like September 11, they forget I had anything to do with it. When they write about the reduction in crime, they mention my police commissioners, but not me. The difference is my police commissioner, one did a third, the other did a third. The last one did a third. I did all of it. And
Well,
it's the
I've
largest
noticed-
reduction in crime in the history of the city. It's the largest reduction in crime in the history of the United States.
They don't
But
seem
the Times has forgotten. They should remember it because they criticized many of the programs that I used to bring down crime that worked. And one of the reasons I have them to thank for a lot of that, because some of these programs I wasn't sure of. So I would leak them. The Times would criticize them, and then I'd do them because I knew they would work. So I worked for President Reagan, and that was the key to his success, he said. He would read the New York Times and the Washington Post very, very carefully, and then do the opposite.
That's
That's a true comment of his.
and the more
Absolutely.
and I would laugh. Usually I'd laugh at something like that. It sounds funny, but then I think about it and I almost take
You
that
know,
as good
I-
advice.
when-
That's like good advice for somebody.
When
in
he
this business.
first, he said it many times. First time I actually heard him say it in person, we all laughed.
Yeah.
And he actually said that. He said, it's not funny.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting here thinking,
No, when everybody laughed, and
Yeah.
Charlie Jones,
because
and
it's
all that,
funny. Yeah,
we started laughing at it. He said,
no, seriously,
He said he didn't get angry at it. He
Yeah.
just said,
guys,
he
start doing this.
it's hard for him to get angry anyway. He'd say something like, no, it's true.
Yeah.
I really do. It was almost a little like very honest. It was like, but I really do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And look, even now, right? You see the New York Times attack somebody these days, and your initial reaction almost is, okay, what did this guy do? You know, what great thing did this guy do?
Yeah.
What great purpose does this guy serve? You know, he's
What about
obviously
the cab
out there.
driver that told us that the other day.
Literally a cab driver.
A
who's
cab driver from Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso. That
A cab
there.
driver from Burkina Faso said, "I'm glad you're in the cab because I've always wanted to explain this. I know that you really did even a better job than I remember because the New York Times criticizes you so much."
Yeah, CNN. Yeah,
No, CNN. No,
He
CNN
said New York Times.
criticizes
He
you so
said
much.
both.
Yeah, because that's what they do when you're successful and you really fix things for people they're against you.
Yeah, it's part. Yeah, and part of it is.
You taped it. We got to play.
Yeah, I have it. I want to say we're gonna post this on
maybe
social media.
Maybe
but
we'll play it tomorrow night.
Yeah, we'll play it tomorrow night. It's incredible.
He gave us permission to do it, so
He
we're
did,
not in any way, betraying him. We Ted asked him if
I
we
did
could
ask.
tape
We
this.
stuck with him and we texted him, and we want to help him out if we
He
can.
was a cool guy.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, when I take the cab with the mayor often, and you should see it almost to a person. Actually, I can say when it comes to our drivers, cab drivers, not once have I had an experience of anything other than, wow, Mayor Giuliani, excitement, just excited to meet you and talk to you, and just the way you bring joy to their life. It's natural and it's not partisan. I don't think I've ever heard a cab driver bring up Republican, conservative, or
Some
any
of
of
them bring
that.
up Trump. Some of them like Trump. too.
They bring up Trump, but
Some
it's not partisan. They bring up what you did for the city,
Some
who
don't.
you are as a
Some
man.
don't mention Trump but some do. Some do say it's terrible what they do to him.
Of course, and I'm trying to bring up this video, but again, this is a regular occurrence in the city. with the mayor.
Here's the thing that's terrible about the censorship and the fascism we have going on. There are people who legitimately have that viewpoint about me, about Trump. They're entitled to that viewpoint. And you can disagree with that, but you should respect their viewpoint, listen to the reasons they have for it. And if you don't agree with it, don't agree with it. But I mean, it's a very legitimate viewpoint to say that
Tomorrow.
if you're a minority, you might very, very well think that Trump was a really good president because minorities were being paid more, had more jobs, with much higher wages than now. Particularly, now you don't be fooled by the fact that the percentage number has gone up because inflation has gone up much more than the wages have gone up. So the real wages, the purchasing power of your dollar, has dramatically declined. Which is why Ted used to say, or Ted would say, Democrats were the party of the working class. Now they're the party that is trying to destroy the working class. Nothing destroys the working class more than inflation. Very rich people can handle a big reduction of 10 or 20 or 30%. There are a lot of millions left after the 10 or 20 or 30%. But if you got 50,000 or 100,000 and 10 or 20 or 30% going, you were going to retire on that. Things are starting to get very tough. And that is what the Democrats have directly done to the working class. They've directly taken that money away from them to redistribute it to the people who aren't working. It's pure communism. That money was put into, they say it was COVID. There weren't COVID programs. They were redistribution of wealth programs. Take it from, the rich to some extent. But again, the rich can handle it. If you take 20% of a guy who's worth $5 billion, that's a lot of money you took, but he's left with a lot of money. You take 20% of a guy that's worth 100,000, you just probably jeopardized his retirement. And you turn it over to people that aren't working. And you do it in a way that encourages them not to work. That's what causes the bitterness in society. That's what causes the disunity. That's what has brought down every communist and socialist government ever. And that's what's causing the riots in China right now.
And I don't know, these limousine liberals understand that, Mayor. The end form here, it doesn't end up well for most of them, right? In a society that does embrace communism, and then, how that plays out.
Well, because
it doesn't end well for most of them, right?
They're being used.
Yeah.
They're being used because they are arrogant, elitists.
NIMBYs, a bunch of NIMBYs.
Yeah, they're.
And that's part of what they missed about President Trump, Mayor. A lot of them with that, they live in gated communities. They go to the clubs. They can't understand why some people they accept President Trump.
The amazing
and some
thing
is more
about,
brash.
The amazing thing about Trump was, here's a guy who was a billionaire, who had the common touch.
Yep.
I used to contrast him with Romney, who was the candidate before him. Romney was a very rich man also, but Trump was much richer. And Romney, the first time I campaigned with him, he was afraid to shake hands with people. I had to go get him off the stage, and we were in front of an Italian group in the Italian section of Boston. And I gave a speech, and when the speech was over for him, I went down into the crowd like I always do. And I know the Italian part of Boston. I've campaigned there many, many times. Bill Weld and Governor Cellucci, and I'm popular there, largely because I'm Italian American, I think. Also because I eat more of their food than most people, and I'm a friendly guy.
Yeah, you would do it if you didn't know this group.
Yeah.
You would have done it. You would do that in any crowd.
The only people I'm not friendly with are the criminals I put in jail.
Yeah,
even
then you do it with a smile.
Yeah. How about the guy I met out in California? I put him in jail for 32 years, and we had a wonderful conversation, and Dr. Maria taped him. I'll get you the tape.
Yeah, that's in. We got to cut that.
He was one of Nicky Barnes' guys. He was a major black drug dealer, he gave me a whole big thing about how it brought him back to religion, and I wasn't sure. You never know what you're getting. It seemed to me it was legit. At least it didn't kill me.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. Just a few minutes left here in the fastest hour on the internet. A good crowd just a few days before Christmas.
Those guys took it better than the Democrats take by going after Biden. They want to kill. The Democrats want to kill me. They really do. They want to take away my law license. They suspend me from the practice of law. They've cost me $6 million in clients. Nice. They started illegally surveilling my iCloud account the first day or two that I represented Trump. They really are sore losers compared to the mob. The mob they put out a couple of contracts. They didn't even mean it. Then they took a vote. They voted 3-2 not to kill me.
Is that true?
100% true.
You know the vote, the five families, basically?
It was taped. It was on tape.
What were the two families that said, no, don't, we're not doing it? And did they need...
Gotti say no?
But no. Gotti was not boss then.
A majority... So what did Castellano say?
No, three voted for me. They're not to kill me.
Okay, it's Castellano. You don't remember where he was?
Paulie may have been dead by then.
Oh.
I remember that Fat Tony Solano voted not to kill me.
Fat Tony,
who is my favorite anyway. He didn't know that, but he was my favorite. Junior Persico voted not to kill me.
That's the snake.
And then put out a contract on me several years later because what did I do to him? I don't remember. I think I had him put in solitary confinement. because he was trying to run his family's business from Lewisburg Penitentiary. And I had him put in solitary confinement. Stupid idiot has somebody come and visit him in solitary confinement. He's in solitary confinement because we tape record everything a prisoner says and does. And on a tape recording, he says, I'll put 400,000 out on the street if you can kill Giuliani. I voted,
400,000. That's big money, by the way.
Oh, no, it was very embarrassing.
At the time, what year was this?
It was 1988.
That's millions of dollars.
But
that's millions of dollars.
Yeah, but in 1984 or 85, the Sicilian Mafia offered $800,000.
Oh, no, that's wow.
We got 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of prosecution, and I go down in value.
Still in the millions, though. I want people to remember 400,000 then is.
No, I know it was a lot of money.
How many people?
Everything's relative in life. How would you feel?
Fair.
If you started and you hadn't done anything yet, and they offer 800 to kill you. Now these bums have to put like 300 or 400. They're only offering 400.
Yeah, they weren't real.
Junior, I don't have any evidence of this. I have evidence of what I just told you. I don't have evidence of this. I think Junior may have been a little PO'd because he voted, not to kill me, and here I put him in solitary.
Oh.
Well, I didn't know at the time. I didn't find out until. Well, maybe I did.
Well, he ended up dying in a restaurant, right? He got gunned down in a public restaurant.
No.
Was that not?
You think of Joey Gallo?
That wasn't Persico?
No.
Who's the one that
Persico died in jail?
Oh, he did the 60 Minutes interview where they tried to play him off as like a innocent old man, right?
Oh no.
Who was that? They get them mixed up.
But they're all.
It's an interesting time period. I'll say that.
They really were horrible. Some of them were horrible animals, and some of them were horrible animals, but interesting human beings.
Interesting time.
And some were not. Gotti, for example, was a really not very interesting, dumb person. I mean, he wasn't interesting.
The media played him up into something interesting.
There were a lot more interesting guys than Gotti.
Yeah.
A lot more interesting, smarter. There are some examples. There's examples of everything. Like there's a certain thing about the mob where they say, many of them, if they had been in a different environment, would have been very successful as business people or entrepreneurs. That's true. It's also not true. Meaning there are some that were very, very bright and could have easily been very successful at other things. And there's some that were complete, absolute homicidal maniacs. Crazy, stupid, dumb. Stunad, Italians say. Stunad. And some of them love killing. Some of them did killing, but when they became bosses, they wanted, and they wanted to stay away from it, not just because it was safer, but also because they'd rather not. They have to do it as part of the job, but it wasn't the best part of the job. The best part of the job was making the money or going with the women or whatever. Or your family. I mean, some of them were terrific family people.
That's the Sopranos, right? They kind of portray the family as such a big part of that show.
Sopranos, of course, is fictional. But and more fictional even than the Godfather, which is largely based on fact, fictionalized, whereas The Sopranos is more fictional. But it does pick up. It is quite accurate in picking up the ethos. Maybe the best way to put it is that's very much like what they were like, but not all of them. The Sopranos were a certain kind of mafia family. Please don't get angry. Kind of a lower class mafia family, not as sophisticated, let's say, as the Genovese crime family. Part of it, and again, you're going to see some of my prejudice here. Part of it because they were in New Jersey. I mean, the organized crime families in New York were considerably more sophisticated. Look, they ran the damn Teamsters Union. They invented and ran Las Vegas.
Did they kill Jimmy Hoffa?
No, I did. I mean, come on. Of course they killed Jimmy Hoffa. You have any doubt that they killed Jimmy Hoffa?
Oh, 9 o'clock.
Jimmy wasn't doing what they wanted, and they put him in the ground somewhere.
Big question in Michigan. The last place he was seen was Fox.
Now, the person who took, and we can discuss this tomorrow night.
Got it now.
The person who took Las Vegas and the Teamsters and the Central States Pension Fund away from them was me. And at the time that I did, I was not as well known as I am now, but a large number of members of Congress, Republican and Democrat, wanted me removed by Ronald Reagan, just like the Bar Association wants me removed now as a lawyer.
Any run-ins with Hoffa, and then we got to sign
It's
off.
the same thing, you know. People say I've changed. I haven't changed. They have. I'm the same exact person. I use the same standards in going after the crooked politicians, and had the same reaction when I found out how many bribes Joe Biden took than when I found out how many people one of the organized crime people killed, or the same reaction that I had to the two Nazis that I prosecuted, or to Congressman Podell, who I convicted before I was 30. I had the same reaction to all of them, and did what I believed was the thing that I could do to contribute to my country, because that's where my talent lies. I can't build a missile. I can't build a cure to a disease, but I sure as hell can put criminals in jail and keep my country safe.
Thanks for joining us. Mayor, we are at the 9 o'clock hour. Do you have some closing words before we see everyone again tomorrow night at 8 p.m.?
Yeah, let's take a little time between now and tomorrow night. Think about the season of the year it is. It's always good to communicate with God, however you do it, particularly at a time where we're remembering maybe the single most dramatic fact in human history, that God became man. Of course, that he gave his life in order to expiate our sins and show us a way to salvation. But of course, that wouldn't have happened if he wasn't born, right? And just think of the significance, the even poetic significance of God becoming man, and that how that elevates the human being, and why in Western civilization life is so important to us, because God took on human life. When you think about the Old Testament, and you think about God elevating human beings to such a degree that he actually talks to Moses, right? That elevates the human being to something quite unique. It makes human life quite important. And then, of course, the dramatic commandment, thou shalt not kill. And then all of a sudden you see its extension in Christianity, as human being is so important. Human life is so important. Human salvation is so important. That God will take on humanity and suffer for us. Those are very important things to consider. It's what humanism, it's the basis really of humanistic values, humanistic thinking, philosophy, ethics. And it's all about the little baby in Bethlehem. So you think about that a little with all the other things we have going on. It might give you some hope. Well, God bless America, and we'll be back tomorrow night.